All right, so welcome everybody out there in social media land. We are the Flint Public Health Youth Academy for another episode of A Youth Perspective. We are excited about today's show. We have a wonderful youth program we want to highlight. The next couple of shows, this series, will be highlighting some fantastic youth programs in the Flint, Genesee County area and really elevating their programs, their services, and bringing light to the offerings that we have for Flint, Genesee County youth. And so today we want to highlight the YouthQuest program, Flint, Genesee County YouthQuest. And so it is a delight for us as FPHYA because we have had the privilege of working with YouthQuest for a number of years now. And we're really excited to share with you what that partnership looks like and what YouthQuest has to offer. So first, I just kind of want to introduce the panel. So we got Dr. Sarah Bailey, she's one of our administrators for FPHYA. We got some of our FPHYA interns, Amir Brown, Kayla Shannon, and Cruz Duhart, and Cole Mays. And then we have some of our staff from FPHYA, and we have the future Dr. Khalil Calvin and Dr. Monisha Summers. And we'll have a few others that will be joining us as we continue in the dialogue. But we're excited because I tell you, the work that these young people have been doing in the Flint community for the last 3 to 4 years has been phenomenal. From health campaigns to health education to research to data analysis, to community dialogues around racism as a public health crisis and the stressor of racism. It's just been phenomenal. And so we're excited to really jump into the conversation. So today we have our guests, Nefertari Jones and Sharima Bauer from Flint, Genesee YouthQuest program. So we want to thank you all for joining us and just say hello to our audience.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Nefertari Jones. Most people call me Tari, and I am the program director for YouthQuest, which is actually just one of a suite of programs through the Flint and Genesee Education and Talent Division of the Flint and Genesee Group, which was formerly the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce. I know that's a mouthful, but that's why Dr. Keys just said YouthQuest. And I'm honored to be here today with you, with Dr. Bailey, with the interns, and with Flint Public Health Youth Academy staff, and my colleague, Sharima.
Thank you, Tari. It's a lovely introduction too. Yes, my name is Sharima Bauer, and I am the grant specialist for YouthQuest. I also write the grants for Teen Quest as well as the Summer Youth Initiative. And we are all come under the auspices of Flint and Genesee Education and Talent, which is under Flint and Genesee Group. And I get to work very closely with Tari Jones and my colleague and friend. And it's great to be here.
So Sharima, just something that you said just kind of struck a idea for me. Now, normally our youth interns are facilitating the talk show. I'm facilitating today because we're really just talking about the two programs, but our youth interns have been a part of grant writing processes. So I know Cruz and Amir specifically, Kayla may have had some as well, but I remember Cruz, Asia, and Amir were in our cohort with the last administration under Dr. Weaver and Dr. Pugh. And they actually wrote a proposal for $100,000. And so I'm really excited to hear what you do, because I'm just thinking about in the future, maybe because we try to continue to have like grant writing trainings and workshops, and maybe that's a partnership we can think about bringing you in to really help build the capacity of what we're doing. And then just to kind of share, we're at the point of expanding. We have about 8 different locations across the country that want to do a FPHYA chapter. So we have a Flint FPHYA, but we're working on a Brooklyn FPHYA, and we're working on an Atlanta FPHYA, a Chicago FPHYA, one in Mississippi, and some in California. And so we're really trying to really take the skill sets that the young people are developing along with their understanding of public health to the next level. So we might have to pull on you for some of those skill sets. But our young people, they know about logic models and budget justifications and budgets and narratives and all of that. So this is so exciting. Well, at least to me, maybe because I'm a nerd, but it's exciting to me, right?
So I love nerding out about all this, Dr. Key. I absolutely do. And I have to tell you, congratulations, because I know that you founded Flint Public Health Academy, Youth Health Academy, and The fact that you are now about to have 8 more chapters or 7 more chapters, 8 including Flint, is just an astounding accomplishment. And so I congratulate you.
Well, these young people did such an awesome job with our COVID campaigns, our mental health campaign that we did this summer, partly with YouthQuest and then with some others, but then also with the community dialogue on racism as a public health crisis. And what we intend to do is to secure some funding to bring the other pending chapters into the same type of dialogue so that we could actually have a national summit with a focus on racism as a public health crisis from a youth perspective. So that's kind of like our next goal. And so we're really excited about it. So kind of want to start off real quick. So share with us, what is YouthQuest and what's your goal and your mission? And if any of our interns or staff have any follow-up questions, feel free to jump in. But just kind of starting off, what actually is YouthQuest? What does YouthQuest do?
So I'll just set the stage for you. So YouthQuest, again, is just one of several programs that's within the Flint and Genesee Education and Talent Division. We have a vision of having a talent development continuum here in the city of Flint for our youth and for our young adults. So YouthQuest is on the starting end of that continuum, and we service students kindergarten through 12th grade. After that, you would have TeenQuest, which is a pre-employability program. It's a 5-week program which teaches kids about interviewing skills, resume writing, things like that. From that, we have our Summer Youth Initiative, which hires hundreds of kids in the Flint area every summer to work with local organizations. And then that segues into Flint Promise. So students who attend a high school within the city of Flint and also live within the city of Flint are eligible for this last dollar scholarship. So after you've exhausted your financial aid and your other scholarships, Flint Promise picks up the rest of the fees. In addition to that, kids are also given a success mentor because we know it takes more than getting into college to graduate from college. So, kids are supported with everything from how do I study to childcare, because we want to see our youth thrive. So YouthQuest, we've been serving in the Flint area for over 11 years now, and it is a no-cost grant-funded after-school program. We have programs at all of the Flint community schools. We have programs at International Academy of Flint, Flint Cultural Center Academy, and beginning in November, we'll be at Bendel South Elementary. Our program is evidence-based, so we're guided by research from the After School Alliance, as well as the Michigan Out of School Time Standards that were developed by the Michigan After School Partnership and MDE. And we kind of take a whole child approach to expanded learning. So expanded learning is any kind of learning that happens outside of the regular school day. So it could be on the weekends or after school or before school, but we're in that after school space. So a lot of our students, they come in thinking it's just going to be arts and crafts and a meal, but we do so much more. So we have 6 components that we focus on that lend itself to that whole child approach. So that would be academic support, and that could be anything from homework help to embedded learning, kind of like putting vegetables and hiding into the casserole. You're taking a culinary class, but really we're teaching you about fractions, and also, you're going to write your own recipe. So we're sticking literacy in there as well. So we have academic support. We have enrichment activities, and those are interest-based. So whatever kids want to learn, we've done everything from Bollywood, Indian style dancing, to drama, to youth entrepreneurship. We also focus on fitness and healthy behaviors, nutrition and nutrition education, because a hungry kid can't learn. So we make sure our kids get a healthy meal every single day, as well as a snack. And not only that, but we partner with other educators to make sure our kids understand what a healthy lifestyle looks like in terms of food. We eat to live. You shouldn't live to eat. So, we focus on that as well. And then youth leadership and youth voice, which is where FPHYA comes in. And then finally, family and community engagement. So it's, it was our honor to work with you. When I heard about you, Dr. Key, and what you were doing, we were like, we need him today with our kids. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, YouthQuest, we've been here for 11 years working with Flint students and beyond, and we're hoping to be here for another 11 years. So that's kind of YouthQuest in a nutshell.
Great. Sharima, did you want to add anything or?
Well, Miss Tari, as the director, she totally covered it all. And just, how amazing, just amazing how amazing our programs are, and how committed our team is. We have our site team leaders. For instance, most of them have been with YouthQuest since its inception, and they often started as learning guides and moved up to lead learning guides and moved up to site team leader, and have been at many of the different sites. And so they have such a thorough understanding of YouthQuest, and like I said, many of them have been with us for a decade. And so it's really amazing to be in the site team leader meetings, and anytime in a meeting with Tari, it's just the creativity in the room is absolutely just amazing. It's awesome. And I'm one that has to, gets to capture all those ideas. And so it's just such a dynamic program, and our local youth are so very blessed to be in it.
So Tari, just a quick question for you and Sharima, but I'm thinking specifically about youth engagement, right? So when we think about youth engagement, other than because the students are at the schools, are there other ways that you engage young people outside of them just being a Flint student or a Genesee County student? Because I could imagine maybe some students at some private schools that don't necessarily go to a public school probably wanting to be a part of some of the stuff that YouthQuest is doing, because I remember when I used to go to Donovan Mayotte, which is now St. John Vianney. It was a Catholic school, but there were programs that weren't offered in the private school that I may have wanted to be a part. Are there other ways that youth can be involved if they're not a member of a public school system, or if their school is not a charter school that's one of the traditional partners?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on that. Definitely there is a need in this country for permanent funding for after school. Recent statistics say that for every kid who has after school programming, there are 3 who have nothing. And the state of Michigan, the numbers are even more dire. For every kid who has after school programming, there are 4 who have none. So going back to what Sharima said about creativity, we've been trying to focus on access and how we can give kids more access to programming, even if you don't go to one of the schools where we host a site. So we're starting to build kind of an online platform that gives students an opportunity to learn. Now, I'll say this. If we don't have waiting lists at our school, then any student in the community is welcome to join. But that's just the thing. If you don't have waiting lists, we have waiting lists. So that's why we're working on an online platform. We're working with companies like 21st Century Tech Ed, which gives students the opportunity to learn all about STEM and STEM careers and youth entrepreneurship. It's an online platform. So if you're not able to join us at a physical site, you can still engage in after school programming, still have that expanded learning piece. We're also working along with the Genesee County Commissioner's Office, as well as Michigan State 4-H on a Citizens Academy. We just launched that this year. We started out with a Civic Engagement Day where we brought in students and they got a chance to meet a lot of different county administrators, from Dr. Hackert from the health department to Sheriff Chris Swanson, Prosecutor David Layton. They got to learn about what county government looks like and how it affects their lives. And from that, we gave kids the opportunity to apply to be a part of the County Commissioner's Youth Council. So we pulled kids from every district, and they're going to be working with county commissioners for the remainder of the school year, talking about issues that affect kids. And then in May, we're going to take them to Lansing so they can talk to state legislators about the project that we've been working on. So yeah, we're trying to expand our programming so that we can give all kids access to our programming.
So that is awesome. And it kind of, I want to come back to the pre-college piece and then really talk about policy and advocacy. I actually wrote that down. We used to do a program with Mrs. Deloney and some others called Kids Speak. And Kids Speak is when we actually had kids to do a community assessment, very much like how we did with our photo voice. Mm-hmm. And they would actually come up with policy recommendations and strategies. And then we trained them on how to be an advocate, how to create elevator speeches, how to do all of those things. And then we would take them to City Hall or down to the Capitol so that they could actually advocate. And so I'm just thinking that this could be some future programming that we could do as well as through FPHYA in connection with YouthQuest, because we offer that policy and advocacy training as part of our curriculum. So that's awesome hearing that you guys are working with the commissioner's youth group. I know FPHYA has been tapped to work with Kildee's office, because he's creating a youth advisory council. So this is awesome. But I want to talk about really quick, tap into Cruz and Kayla and Amir. So these were the first set of our youth interns that actually transitioned from high school right into college, as being a part of FPHYA. And I know this is some of their first year being away for school, because the COVID year was kind of weird. It was just weird. But I'm thinking about the things that they could share with your young people when we start talking about pre-college stuff and, learning how to navigate the system. Is just so many things that they can offer. Cruz and Kayla, or Amir, would you like to share your thoughts maybe about us possibly having a session with YouthQuest Youth and sharing some of that experience? Because for most of us, I know for me, first generational college student, like my mom went to a vocational, she was a cosmetology, and my father did not go to college. So I was a first generation college student. And so trying to learn those systems and navigate was somewhat difficult. And so I'm just wondering, Cruz and Kayla, would you like to kind of chime in, and Amir, about maybe what that could look like and maybe some of the things that you've experienced?
So I can go. What I might suggest we could do is a workshop or something like that where we talk about FAFSA, because that's one of those first things that is really important and integral to speak about. Because without being aware of it, it can really cause problems down the road. And then potentially along with that workshop, we would talk about scholarships, some places that you can assess them, and just understanding the type of resources that you have when it comes to once you've applied and been accepted at your school. And understanding that there are people out there who are trying and willing to assist you in some sort of way, and sometimes you need to go speak to them. Like, they're not necessarily available to just give it out to everyone, but if you go speak to them in person or write an email to them, they might have resources to offer you. So I think a workshop full of tidbits like that, and just bringing in awareness to some of the processes that you have to go through as a college student would be really helpful. I know that was kind of given to me in a bunch of random ways, and so I think having one that's designated for that, though, would be super useful.
Yeah, I think our students would really take heed to what you had to share as well, because it's near peer rather than more adults just talking at them. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. Especially, I think it would be helpful if you attend different types of universities, whether it's a PWI or HBCU, a larger school, a smaller school. I know those tips were really handy for my kids to hear from other students. Well, I love this college because it was smaller and I got mentorship, or I love this college because it was huge and had so many different programs that were offered to me. But I would love to be able to do that. I also, if you were able to speak from a financial literacy standpoint, because like Dr. Key, first generation college student here. What did I do, Dr. Key? As soon as I got to school, they were like, hey, you can get this free t-shirt if you sign up for credit cards,
loans.
Yes,
All
all of it. That's what our kids need to know. You know what? You don't have to wait until you're out of college and starting a career to build wealth. It starts early by making those good decisions. So I think they would benefit from those conversations as well. And that's why I love Zoom now. We can do things virtually, so we don't even have to fly people in. I would love for us to be able to connect that way with our students, and I guarantee it would be well received. And I don't even want to wait till we're talking to 11th and 12th graders. I say bring them in 9th grade, so they can start thinking about these things early.
I would so agree with that. I have so much to say. One, I hated FAFSA. I hate FAFSA. Like, I hate. When I say hate, like, I hate. But it's so important. Like, it's such an important part of receiving financial aid, of how you're going to be assessed by your school based on financial need and what scholarships you can and can't get. So I definitely would be willing to be a part of a workshop talking about that horrible, horrible beast, the elephant in the room that we all try to avoid. But I also think the two other things that we spoke about, financial literacy and starting early. As far as starting early, I was always one of those students who people felt were over prepared. Like I literally went into my freshman year of high school. Like, these are all of the classes that I'm going to take over the next 4 years. And it didn't happen exactly like that. But that just goes to say, like, I have always been a planner. And suffice to say, it worked out for me, right? And I feel like oftentimes people unfortunately get caught in this mentality that if you're going to go to college, you have to go into debt, like, regardless. And I have always been like, I'm not paying for school. You're not gonna pay. I'm not paying you to teach me. Like, education should be free, but that's a whole nother subject. And so I think it's very important for people to recognize, especially people of color who oftentimes don't have access to this type of information, how important it is to start early and be cognizant, even in the 9th grade, of what colleges are looking for, how many classes, how many foreign language classes they want you to take, how many AP classes they want you to take, what grade they want you to get on those AP classes in order to get college credits. Like, all of these things factored into my ability to market myself to colleges. And even to go the step further, my story is unique in that I didn't even originally, I only received a tuition scholarship from every school that I applied to. They gave me full tuition, which was very disappointing for me as a student who I said had always been very prepared. It was always like, I'm doing all of this so that I can go to college for free. Like, that's the point. But then I actually, the summer before college, knowing I only had tuition and knowing that I was going to Spelman, which is an extremely expensive school, for those who do not know, it's approximately $50,000 a year, and was like, what am I gonna do? And interestingly enough, my mom was like, email the deans at your school. And I was like, no, Mom, that's so corny. That is so corny. Like, they've already given me their decision. Like, that would be so weird if I emailed all of these people and like asked them for money. And like, no, I was like, absolutely not. But my mom is my mom. And she was like, no, like, just reach out to them, send them your resume, send them your transcripts, send them a nice letter thanking them for what they've given you, but letting them know that you need more. I was like, no. But eventually I did. I emailed, I think, our dean of students, our dean, our biggest dean. Like, I put them all in one email and sent them a letter. I think I sent them my letters of recommendation. I sent them like my elevator pitch, basically. Like, look, I can look. And I actually and originally received a no, like, back from that email. They were like, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do. We don't have the funds available. We've given you as much as we can. And that was disappointing, but it was just like, hey, I tried. About a month later, I got a call saying that some money had just been donated from the head of Netflix, and this new scholarship that had never existed previously existed for the first time for my class, and they were allowing 20 students to receive the scholarships, and I was chosen for one of those 20 students. And I don't know if that email had anything to do with it. I don't know if I would have received it regardless, but the point being, you want to get your name out there and you want to take chances that are uncomfortable, because you never know where it can get you. And so that's one piece, starting early and also putting yourself out there. But I think as a third piece, financial literacy, as a baby adult, as a fresh baby adult, this credit thing is not a joke. And my parents, I would say, like, actually got me started early thinking about it, like explain credit cards and like the whole thing to me. But like, it's so anxiety inducing to like all of a sudden have this number that's attached to your name that like, it's more stressful than a GPA. Like, it's like a GPA times like 50,000. And it's like, you don't know what it means when your points go up, and you're scared when your points go down, and you don't know what makes your points go up and down. Like, you're navigating this entirely new system. So all those things I would say are very, very important. I would definitely love to speak to the young people in you all's program. Of course, there's always more to learn. So I would even love to learn from them and see what information they can glean to me as well. But yeah, that's what I've been learning.
Amir, do you
Thank
have
you.
something to add?
Yes. So personally for me, I think with the FAFSA thing was like really, really important. Because like going from like my junior to senior year, it was like you had no idea. Like it was just like you take all this standardized testing and then boom, you get hit with the FAFSA. And it's like it's crazy because they have all these passwords that you need to remember, all this other different type of stuff, and everything that's available. Like you need to really know what resources you have out there. And so I think most kids are pretty much stuck in the dark when as it comes to resources because they see it on the surface level, but there's way more resources than you actually can imagine and think about they have available to you. And also another thing recommending is like for scholarship wise, there's a lot of variety of them. There's even one for like left-handed people, you know? So like take all those opportunities that you can and download different apps, download all this other different stuff because it can really help you in the long run.
Yeah, and sort of what I recognized when you mentioned earlier about the panel, like technically, you know, we have 2 HBCU students here, as well as one who goes to a PWI, one that's kind of a smaller branch of a larger one. And so we kind of have a diverse, you know, out perspective between us three alone here. But beyond that, what I was also thinking about is knowing how to apply to these scholarships. It's not just knowing about the access to them. It's understanding where you should be getting a recommendation letter from, if you're really close with that person or not, you know, so that they'll write a good one. It's also understanding how to write an essay for a scholarship and how to like actually fulfill the requirements that they're looking for, and to understand that you need to have that pure read or like, you know, edited. You can't just be like, ooh, I did this all in one go, send it off, 5 a.m. No, you definitely need someone to look over it and check over it, things like that. So it's just those extra steps that are in between that would help set you apart from other students and things like that. And it's really important to know, because if you don't know, you kind of left behind. But yeah.
You know what's crazy? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I lost all my college application essays, and I'm so mad about it.
Oh no.
But point being, those are important. And another note that I want to make is that Common App is like, Common App saved me, because it like puts all your applications in one place, and it makes it easier for you to like filter through is what I was trying to say. Filter through like, how many essays do you need to write? Can you just use the same essay? Because I'm telling you, do not write a fresh essay for every single one of your applications. That doesn't make sense. It's inefficient, it's ineffective, and it'll stress you out. So Common App helps you to be like, okay, well, this one is basically the same thing as that one, so I'm gonna just turn in the same thing. I think I ended up writing like maybe like 3 or 4 essay responses, somewhere in there, because I was just like, look, you gonna get the answer that they got. Okay, because yeah, make it work.
So as you can see, Tari and Sharima, we have a lot to share, and I think our youth interns sharing their personal experiences, like you said, and not it coming from a PowerPoint or someone who's been out of college 25 years, you know, that's not even in touch with Common App. When I was going to school, we didn't have Common App.
There were no Common Apps.
I got to explore that one. So, but I think it's just awesome that we're able to provide these things. So that's why I'm saying in so many ways, we're able to do this. And Dr. Bailey has been very, very, strong in providing opportunities for our youth to go outside of our curriculum and actually be on panels. And many of them have gotten stipends for presenting to groups and stuff, because we're building their capacity to not only advocate for public health careers, but also building them up as public speakers and really leadership skills. And so this is awesome. So I'm pretty excited about that. But this policy and advocacy piece, first of all, Kiara is on, and Kiara is one of our mentors. She's from Flint, and she's actually in law school. And we have some other folk who do advocacy and policy work who partner with us. Naira Sharif, you guys know her, and Flint Rising. They do a lot of activism and advocacy and policy work. And so we have a policy and advocacy curriculum that's a part of our overall FPHYA curriculum that we take deeper dives in. And we can really talk about that, because to me, that is a direct connection to the policy recommendations that came from the summer camp that we just had. And so we can talk about that. But before we get into that, I kind of want to highlight that. Like, okay, so you guys have worked with FPHYA for 2 summer camps, right? The very first summer camp, we were at Baker College on site. This is pre-COVID, right? And we did our photo voice project that was focused on youth obesity and youth diabetes. And our question was, our recreational spaces in Flint and Genesee County suitable for youth to engage in physical activity. And you guys paid for us to have a bus, and our youth, we trained them about public health and what photo voice was. And we went to parks in all the 4 quadrants of the city, and they took pictures, and we did the photo voice. And then we just did another photo voice project this past summer. And this one was very different. It was different for all of us because we had to pivot. That's the word for this year, pivot. If you haven't learned how to pivot, you're gonna learn. COVID made us pivot. Even in school, we have to pivot to virtual versus in person. And so let's talk about those summer camp experiences. What was it like for you all working with us in the first summer camp and the second summer camp? Share what that was like.
So the first summer camp, and I'll just tell you how that came about. So there was a gap in summer programming for our Flint Community School students, for our 8th graders, and the district came to us and we're like, hey, we want you to come up with some really engaging summer activities for our 8th grade students. So we saw that as a way of engaging kids in STEM. So we kind of had a 2-part program. The first part was through National Geographic. We had Willie Buford, our site manager, work with our students on, getting familiar with their environment, the flora and the fauna there within Flint. And then we had Dr. Kent Key come in and introduce our kids to the idea of public health, what it looks like, public health careers, research methodology. And, it sounded really exciting to me, but I was like, oh, I don't know if our 8th graders are going to buy this. I don't think they could get enough of you, Dr. Key. And it just amazes me that years later, some of those early 8th graders are still with you and are looking at careers in medicine or in science. And that just tells me that we cannot underestimate our kids. There's just so much potential there beyond what people usually think of. A lot of our kids, when they're 3rd grade, oh, I want to play basketball, or I want to be a police officer, or I want to be a doctor. There's so much more that's out there. And I was just so appreciative of the Flint Public Health Youth Academy just coming and opening the eyes of our kids to not just to other careers, but how they could change the community and the world around them. And it started with them having a voice. So that first one was just very exploratory. And I think the one that we did this year was even more impactful because it was a different type of kid that you had this summer. Definitely a different type of learner. These students that we work with, some of them had very low literacy rates. So a lot of them weren't very confident learners, but the environment that you had them in, the learning environment, it just felt very inclusive and very supportive, and they felt like they could share their ideas and that they could learn about research methodology just like kids would in Grand Blanc or Flushing or in any of the other districts. And so this summer was just even more inspiring to me than the first summer, just because of where you brought those kids to in terms of their confidence and learning. And so this summer they had, from my understanding, I think it was 5 kind of hybrid learning sessions because you had to squeeze it all in again. What should have been probably an 8 to 10 week session, you squeeze it into 3 weeks. We wanted it to be 5 or 6, but you squeeze like 5 lessons into 3 weeks. started early in the morning with kids who were still half asleep. And they learned about principles like community-based participatory research and self-care and advocacy and, you know, all types of research methodology. And they're still talking about it now in October, Dr. Key.
Wow.
So, you know, my hope is that we can re-engage those kids with Flint Public Health Youth Academy, because I still think there's more work to be done with that group. And I would love to expand it as well. I know we had plans to work with students with International Academy of Flint this fall, but that didn't quite work out. And you're super busy, but I'm really hoping that we can bring you back to work with those kids at homes, because they're on the north side of Flint, where sometimes there's not a lot of hope. And I think you sow seeds of hope this summer with those students. So that was my perspective. Sharima may have a different perspective from a grant writing, you know, perspective. Are there some things that you wanted to share, Sharima, about what you witnessed this summer?
Absolutely. So I so enjoyed being able to be there for the times that I was there. It was just an amazing experience. Firstly, we were finally all back in person. Yay. That was amazing. And I know that that's what contributed to the energy that was there in the room. Every time I was there, every time all of you were there, the energy, but it was so gratifying, yes, as a grant writer, to hear Dr. Key put out, all right, what does quantitative mean? And student after student after student were giving him answers, and they were all spot on. What does qualitative mean? And once again, several students were absolutely saying, this is quantitative, this is qualitative. And they were spot on. And I was like, this is wonderful. This is wonderful that they understand these are research terms, and not everyone understands that in middle school, especially. But I know that too, you know, the energy was high. Like Tari said, it was very early in the morning. Some of them were probably half asleep, but at the same time, they were so energized and they were so glad to be there together. And so glad that you were there, Dr. Key, and you were there, Dr. Bailey, and Khalil, that you were there as well. And they were so glad to have, they were just there, they were just glad to be there, but they were also engaged, and they were engaged on a really deep level. And the discussions were out of sight. They were awesome. And the classes that I was able to attend, and the discussions were it was just consistent. The students were there, they were raising their hands, they were calling out responses, they were spot on with their responses. You know, the reports that I read, they had so much to say. And you know, the analyses that came back to us especially in regards to the photo voice and the pictures, and you know, and of course I wrote about this in our final report to the funder. And you know, and talking about, you know, these particular places, you know, the pictures were of abandoned homes, and an abandoned apartment complex. It's now about to be raised, and also an active recycling plant that could have, you know, potential difficulties for air quality. And we know that so many of our young people suffer from asthma, and many of them, our young people, have you know, generationally have not outgrown that. And now we have adults too who are suffering from asthma. And so, you know, this really called into mind a reality, it was already in existence, but allowed them to see, someone sees me, someone sees where I live, someone understands, because these are the photos from my area. You know, I think the photos were taken within a 1 mile radius. Is that correct? Of home STEM Academy.
Correct.
So these students, they knew this, they saw these things, and here they were being asked to talk about these things. Let's talk about what's happening in this community, in your community. Let's talk about these things. And we value your voice, and we want to hear what you have to say about it. We want to hear what you think. And it was sobering. It was sobering what the students had to say, but it was spot on. And FPHYA allowed them that. You know, there's a phrase about hearing someone into speech, and that is what I believe FPHYA was there to do, was to hear our students into speech.
So one thing I will highlight from this summer's camp, and then Khalil and Dr. Bailey can chime in as well, because they were there almost at every session, actually. When first of all, that was the earliest we've ever done this curriculum. That was challenging. Please don't do that again if we can help it. Because I'm talking about we were the first thing at 7 in the morning, right after breakfast. And that was challenging, but it was still rewarding because for us, it's all about the engagement. Can we make that engagement? Can we get their trust? Can we get their attention, right? And so for me, though, the concept around my neighborhood, things that are safe or unsafe, abandoned homes, abandoned buildings, and making that connection to mental health. How does this make you feel having to walk past these abandoned homes or these abandoned properties, right? Because we really focused on mental health, right? How does that make you feel mentally? And, you know, they were able to talk about those feelings because it was a safe space. And we taught them self-care. But what was amazing to me was the recommendations through the photo voice research and evaluation that they did. It was like, they were like, we need to get some funds, and these abandoned homes are on every block, at least every other block. We should be able to revamp one of these abandoned homes and turn it into a tutoring center, or turn it into a space where kids can learn how to sew, or maybe how to cook, or some type of life skill. And I just thought that was awesome, the way they were like, we're going to come up with some solutions from a youth perspective, and we're going to give them to y'all adults, and y'all going to have to make it happen for us, or either take us to the decision makers so we can advocate. And I think that's the next piece we need to do. That's why I'm kind of focusing, Tari, on this advocacy and policy piece, real heavy, because they're doing the assessments. They're coming up with the solutions. For 2 summer camps, they have done this. But now we have to focus on how to get them into a space where they can really advocate. And I think that by you all having engagement with the commissioner's youth group, that's a perfect window for us to be able to take some of the results of this. I think it's awesome. And for me, it was just a dynamic experience. Dr. Bailey Khalil, would you like to join in about your observations from the summer camp and our partnership with YouthQuest?
Well, first of all, just speaking of our partnership with YouthQuest, it has been amazing. Both the fully in-person YouthQuest that we did at Baker's, and even this hybrid, because I still see this as a hybrid that we did at homes, because we did have to pivot, and we were partially in person, piping in Zoom to a classroom. We're in one classroom, we're in person, but the others, we were zoomed into them. And so that was different. The way the students responded was awesome, because when we would go into the next classroom, even though we weren't with them the day before, they still had that knowledge. They had retained that knowledge for the next class that we did. And I thought that was awesome. Also, with the students being able to assess their own neighborhood and to be able to express what they assess to adults. They took it out of their court and put it in ours. And if nothing is done, it's not because of them. It's because adults did not listen and hear, and they had very valid points and step-by-step methods for getting there. I thought that was awesome for each one of those students. I can still remember some of them. I remember the triplets, and I remember some of them, a lot of them, as a matter of fact. And then when we did, because we had to pivot, we had intended to offer mental health as a separate entity, but we had to push it all together, and to be able to push it into a way that we could elicit from the kids and speak with them. That was awesome as well. And I think we even gained the trust of some of the staff, because they came to us and wanted to share and talk about personal issues that they were having in relationship to COVID vaccination, understanding COVID. And we were able to share with them and to deal with their mental health issues around being in classrooms with kids who were not vaccinated.
Mhm.
And so that was something that I really stood out in my mind from everything that we did this past summer.
Yeah. Dr. Key, can I chime in really quickly? Something Dr. Bailey said about the staff coming to them. I think something that we didn't consider, but it makes sense that it happened, is that a lot of those teachers who were in the classroom were inspired by what they saw. So, when they approached their lesson planning this fall, instead of being deficit minded with their students in terms of building their lesson plans and their curriculum, instead of thinking about what our students can't do, they started to think about what's possible with those students, and they started to teach based on those students' assets rather than deficits. And I didn't even consider that happening, but that's another way that your program really helped at homes with those students, and it inspired those teachers as well. So I want to thank you for that too.
Great. Khalil, and then Monisha was a part of the very first one as well when we were at Baker. I believe it was Monisha and Asia's mom, Bianca, if I'm not mistaken. So just if you guys want to kind of chime in about maybe what you recall or what kind of stood out with our partnership.
I kind of want to echo Dr. Bailey a bit, because I was the first person to do the preliminary analysis of the results. And I will say the honesty was greatly appreciated from the responses they gave us. And it was interesting to see what they actually internalize, because they live in those communities. They have, they're with their parents, they go out and see all the buildings. And it's interesting to see how they understood it and how they made it manifest throughout the project. So the honesty was great. And I'm just impressed that they were able to take what we taught them and then bring it all to the front, and then be able to tell us in no uncertain terms what they needed and what they wanted. So that was a very stark and different thing from the previous one we did. But I guess that's what you expect out of middle schoolers. They will tell you what they think.
May I just alongside that, Khalil? Yes, there was one. And Dr. Key, when we met, when you were going over the reports with us before you gave them to us, there was one that you pointed out that just stayed with me so truly was, yes, Khalil, one of the students who'd said, answering the questions about the photo voice, what should we do about it? And one of the students said, I'm just a kid. What are you going to do about it? You in capital letters. And I thought that is wonderful. Here is a young person, 11, 12, 13, holding the adults accountable, because it was actually adults who made these awful decisions that brought whether it was the abandoned house, or whether it was the abandoned apartment complex, or whether it was the air quality that this recycling plant may or may not be influencing. I'm just a kid. What are you going to do about it? And I loved that. That was holding adults accountable for choices that affect our children.
Did you have anything to say, Monisha?
The only thing I would say is just based off of what you guys were saying from the first one, because I only did, I think, 2 days at homes, but the first one that I did, it just seems it was like the same to me, because at homes, at Baker, they were looking at parks, but they were saying we need to come up with the solution. Whereas, with this program at homes, it was the neighborhoods. And so it's just pretty much the same thing that the kids, but at Baker, they were able to actually see, they were able to walk around and say, hey, like, look at this. Where these kids, we didn't have enough time to do that. Sorry, my son.
It's okay.
Okay. But, and then just to piggyback on what they were saying, what you guys were saying about the area, because I also live like right by home school. So in the area. And so to me, that does make, I never thought about that, what the kids are saying to have, like tutoring centers or centers for, sewing. That's pretty cool, because do something with these abandoned homes. So I really want to see what we will be able to come up with to help these kids make a change in their community, because coming from that living in that community, there does need to be a change.
And I kind of want to, Monisha, keep you on for just a second, because Monisha, like I said, the Youth Academy came as an extension of my dissertation work. And so when I first hired Monisha into MSU, I had a volume of things that could populate the modules. That is what our curriculum is. And Monisha was tasked with organizing it and laying it out in those modules. So Monisha, just from someone who helped to kind of organize the final curriculum, what's your reaction when you actually see it in action? Because I know when you first came, you're like, what is this? This is just like a lot of outlines and all this stuff. But now that you're seeing the impact of it, how does that resonate with you?
I'm really excited. Because like you said, it was just like a lot of information. I'm like, are they gonna really, are these kids really gonna understand? I tried to, get it as simple as I could, because I know like this will be something new for them. But I think it really came full circle. You guys, like when you guys teach, like I've taught a section, Khalil, Dr. Bailey, and Dr. Key, you pretty much taught, the classes that we've given the youth, and they really are interested, and you make it so interesting. You make it interesting for them. So I think that it came full circle, and I really see that, this is something that we can potentially, like if we open, when you do other sections like Atlanta or Mississippi, you can use that curriculum as a guide to like help, okay, hey, this is what they have in the curriculum, but we can do this because this may not, align with what we're trying to get across to the youth, but here's like something just to give them an outline of what to do. So I'm glad to see it come full circle.
Yeah, and then I know Amir and Cruz have both helped to co-facilitate when we were working with the WOW youth. Specifically before COVID, when we were doing the in-person sessions after school, and they were there helping to co-facilitate a lot of the things, and it was all about, well, what we did with the WOW youth may be interesting for you all at YouthQuest. They were actually doing focus groups. They got a grant from Mishar, where I used to work at U of M, and they had to do focus groups. And so Khalil and Amir, not Khalil, Khalil was there too, Khalil, Cruz, and Amir, and Monisha, we were all there working, but Cruz and Amir helped to co-facilitate what focus groups was, what qualitative research was. And then we got those young people certified through MSU to do human subjects research. Anyone that's on any research grant knows you have to have some type of IRB certification to do it. They went through the whole process. They are now bona fide researchers with certifications. They can be on a research team. And then we actually had to work with them after COVID started virtually to actually teach them how to do the data analysis. So I think that that's just an awesome way of kind of showing the capacity building that's happening, not only with the students, because FPHYA has different levels of engagement. One is the students who we are partnering to provide programming from, so like YouthQuest. But then it's our youth interns, and we meet every Thursday, and we run the whole program is out of those meetings. Like, I don't make an executive decision, Dr. Bailey doesn't. We have discussions, we decide what our platforms will be, we decide how those things will operate, and then we have our mentors, right? And our mentors, Go ahead.
No, as you were talking about, they have the certification, just so that Nefertari and Sharima knows, those are lifetime certifications, which means that that certification that they got as a youth will carry over all the way throughout their adult life. If they intend to do any type of research, they're already certified to do it.
Yeah. And so we haven't had a chance to walk YouthQuest students through that yet, but we have with some of our other youth programs that we're actually doing research studies. And it's only lifetime if they get it through MSU. If you go through U of M, theirs is called Peers. You have to retake it every 3 years. But at MSU, you take it once and you're good. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that, and we're close to our closeout time. Told you, Tari, we can go almost a whole hour before you know it. It's going, but I want to now just kind of pivot to the community dialogues. That was the ending of the last day of the summer camp, and all the young people were in the library, and we talked about racism as a public health crisis and the stressor that racism is, and the youth talked about why racism exists, how it impacts health, but then also talked about solutions. what we can do, and that was captured in that report. So Nefertari and Sharima, can you what was your reaction to that specific data? That was outside of the public health youth curriculum, right? That was our dialogue. What was your reaction to that?
Earlier I used the word sobering in regards to the students, just the truth that they were speaking in regards to the photo voice pictures, and in regards to, in utilizing the language, right? And when I read that report about the community dialogues, it was, again, it was sobering. The students were talking about a lived reality that 11 and 12 and 13-year-old young people should be thinking about, playing sports. They should be thinking about, they're, having fun, the things that they really want to do. They should be, being able to explore all kinds of opportunities to follow talents that they think they want to do in music or in anything that they want to do. They should be able to focus on that and have that innocence, that, and just a curiosity, a sense of curiosity about life. But instead, these young people, and they are doing that, don't get me wrong, they are doing that, but they're also doing it with an understanding about a reality that they should never have to grapple with, and that even adults have a hard time grappling with, much less these young people who are tweens and early teens. And that was what really came home to me was, as I was reading through all the facets of that report, to be able to write about it in our final report, it really came home to me that these young people are naming a reality for themselves that is their reality. And again, I'm grateful to FPHYA for being able to give them that voice, but it was heartrending that this is the reality that they were naming. And so I really appreciated that they were able to talk about that, and that they very likely probably felt seen. And I hope that they felt heard.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sobering is definitely the word. The fact that I think out of 68 of them, like 45 knew what racism was before the age of 10. So just that loss of innocence, and just how something is not innocuous as like balloons have a different meaning for kids in our community. That, a lot of people, when they think of balloons, they think of celebration. And our kids, when they see a grouping of balloons, they think someone died there. Someone that was my color died there, and they may have died, because of the color of their skin. And it was heartbreaking. At the same time, it was encouraging. And I don't know if you're familiar with the research, the dandelion and the orchid research, about how some kids are dandelions and they can thrive no matter what the environmental factors are. And then orchids, they definitely need more support. We definitely got a lot of dandelions on the north end of Flint that are able to thrive in just unimaginable circumstances. And the fact that they're solution minded. And yeah, they're, not just how can you fix this, they want to fix it. And Dr. Key, I'm glad that you brought that up about what's the next step, because Sharima and I have been working on a new program, and Sharima has been integral to this. It's a grant making service learning project. And I would love it if we could find a way to loop FPHYA into this, but we're working on it with students at homes right now, where they're thinking about issues in their community, what they can do to fix them. And then Sharima, along with Ashley Young and Tetrick Thomas and Lori Bone from Sloan, are talking to our kids about turning that what into a why into a service learning project, and then writing a mini grant that is then going to be funded so they can make the change in their community. So right now we have 4 projects that we're launching. One is to put lights on the porches of senior citizens in the neighborhood so that they're safe. Another are kits for the homeless in our area, playground cleanup, and I think the other is a cleanup over at Hasselbrink Senior Citizen. So our kids, those dandelions, those resilient dandelions, are already thinking about what they can do to change their communities for the better.
Oh, and another project is care packages for the homeless. And
yeah.
So, and the students came up with all of these projects themselves.
They did. So FPHYA has definitely been a springboard for our kids in so many different ways.
Yes. And being able to renovate the playground equipment at Holmes STEM Academy as well. Mm-hmm. And that's going to affect about 500 students, because Brownell uses that equipment as well. So yes, so they are absolutely, embedded in their community and want to make change, and they want to do great things. And so that's, so while my heart was just felt rended at what I consider to be a loss of innocence, but they're there and they're emboldened in a lot of really important ways.
Yeah. So the work that you're doing, the research that you're doing, the work that the interns are doing, you're causing a ripple effect, a positive ripple effect in our community. It's going to go beyond and now into Brooklyn and into all these other places. So
yes, and I want to give a shout out to the funder, because it's the same funder for both of these. Whether it was the FPHYA, Home STEM Academy summer camp, or the grant making program, and that funder is Recast. And we're very fortunate to have resilient communities after stress and trauma, or Recast, here in our community in Flint. And I'm so glad that SAMHSA renewed their grant for another 5 years. So yes, we have to give honor where it is due.
So, and our programs have been funded by, some of them also by Recast, as well as you all, specifically through YouthQuest. And then the Community Foundation of Greater Flint has been a big supporter of the programs that we've been doing. And then we also got some early funding through the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation when we launched. So we're excited and hope. And I always say on these shows, if there are funders who are listening, don't forget about us. We're doing the work. Let's meet so we can do this. And then I also say, if there are any private donors that would like to donate to the work, we are 501c3, and we actually have the type of infrastructure where we can also do that as well. Cole just said, I think that everyone is able to thrive. However, some will face greater challenges that aren't completely under their control. Everyone's capable, but some may have to adapt to more. And so that's exactly what we were saying through the dandelion and the orchid illustration. Thank you for chiming in on that, Cole. And then another thing that I'm pushing is for us to push financial or funding sources to actually create endowments for programs, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. I think we might want to have a different show to talk about that, because just like universities are endowed and things are endowed, we know programs happen, but when funding goes away, the issues that the programs were addressing tends to come back. And so we need to think more creative around that. But I just want to say, I heard some reoccurring things. So with the homes students, you guys are talking about the playground cleanup. That was one of the recommendations from the Baker College photo voice. Not only was it cleaning up the playgrounds, it was paying the older youth, giving them summer jobs to keep the playgrounds clean. Because one, they're getting summer employment that's keeping them from busy and occupied. And then two, it allows the younger youth somewhere safe to actually go and engage in physical activity. And we were actually talking about that. So that's just funny that this came up with a whole nother set of students that were not even a part of that particular summer camp. So this is exciting to hear some of these reoccurring themes. So, all right, any of our interns or anyone else on the panel want to chime in before we get ready to close out? Maybe it's another piece that maybe we kind of touched on that you might want to take a deeper dive in or just add to the conversation. All right. Any final words, Nefertari and Sharima, as we get ready to close out the show?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to share about the work that we're doing, our collective impact that we're having here in communities of color with our youth. And thank you to the youth interns. I really am hoping that we can connect you with our students and have that workshop on, college and beyond. And something I'd like to add to that, since we have two who are attending HBCUs, how can we make that more affordable? Because I know a number of students, including my own, who would love to attend a HBCU, but can't afford that price tag. So I would love to put that on the agenda as well. So thank you.
And thank you so much for allowing us to come on the show this evening. I've enjoyed watching the shows and never thought I'd ever have an opportunity to be on this side of the screen with you. And so it's just been a pleasure to be here this evening. And thank you again, Dr. Key and Dr. Bailey, and all of you for the work that you're doing here with our young people. And I love that we have, I love that you're doing this, especially our young people here on our screen, Kayla Shannon, Amir Brown, Cruz Duhart, Kiara Wallace. I know that, all of you were younger when you started, and that is it's great modeling for our current young people to be able to come up as well, and to be able to see, to have you in front of them as models. And so thank you for the mentoring that you're doing simply by living your lives and being here in these spaces.
So before we leave, I do want to again kind of stress the fact that I would love for us to do something specifically focused also on policy and advocacy from YouthQuest, since we've done photo voice projects. Now, how do we advocate for some of the policy recommendations? I could definitely see pulling in and contracting Kiara Wallace. Again, she's a law student that's a part of FPHYA. Also, Sharice Lee is one of our mentors. She's on when she can, but she's an attorney here in the city of Flint. And then we have, again, Naira Sharif and others who've done advocacy and policy work. So really holding some trainings with the young people about that. Now that you have these recommendations, what are the next steps? Because it's okay to say, here they are adults, but if the adults don't pick them up and run with them, then the youth still have to make it work. And so I'm just excited about what the future could hold for us as we continue to partnership. It has been a pleasure for FPHYA to partner with YouthQuest. We hope to continue to do that and to offer our services to the services that you already have as a program, and hopefully make Flint, Genesee County a better place for our young people. So everyone, we thank you for joining in out there in social media land for another episode of A Youth Perspective. We thank you for being here. We will be here Friday after next at 6:30. Meet us then, and we'll see you then. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.